Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman, and today we're going to discuss the peculiar failure of correctly predicting problems.
Hmm.
So, this is something that I've had a perennial problem with, where I can look at a project and say, oh, this is the problems that will, especially in a project with a large Big Bang, these are the problems that you're going to encounter along the way, and that will hit you because your whip is too large, you're making too big of a single thing, like all the things that we talk about, like, okay, these are going to
Hmm.
lead to these known and obvious problems.
Right.
And sure enough, they do. And what I have realized over the years is that that's not a success. That it means that I have failed in my consultative role because I these are known problems. I knew them. I saw them. I told you about them, but I failed to get any traction about it. And you hit them anyway. And so it's a
Right.
failure. It's a peculiar failure for me because part of the value that I'm bringing to the table, that like somebody like us brings to the table, is I see the problems before you hit them, and I can tell you how to avoid them.
Right.
But then you hit them anyway because you didn't listen. And sort of the genesis of that is I got congratulated yesterday I made three predictions, and two of them came true already, and the third one probably will come true soon if it ever makes it into production.
Okay.
Because the third prediction was that the customers are going to complain, and you're not prepared for that. Like, it's a rewrite, and you're going to create all these new things, and some of the customers are going to complain that the new design sucks.
Okay. So
Because
you
customers
got.
always, amount of customers will always complain that the new design sucks,
Hmm.
and you're not ready for that, and therefore you're going to end up pushing this out. They're going to tell you why it sucks. You're going to pull it back, and this is like it's not a magic prediction because I don't like the designs or anything. It's just this happens
Hmm.
every single time, and if you don't, if you thesis ship and you incrementally change something, it'll work. Or if you put it out there for early access and let people see it and then give you feedback, that
Hmm.
works. But if you just change it, 100% of the time, some of the customers hate it with valid reasons, and you're going to pull it back.
Okay. So you got
Like, these are
congratulated.
not amazing predictions. Yeah. Hmm?
So so even though you're saying like you predicted some negative outcomes, the funny part is you get congratulated on them uh, as you watch them come true instead of just working to prevent them.
Well, I was working to prevent them, and
Hmm.
some of the people who were, I worked to prevent them, and I failed. Or I did not succeed more than failed. Right? Like,
Okay.
we had, well, I was brought in, like on this specific project, I was brought in a consultative manner. It was not a project I was working on. They said,
Okay.
this is the problem, this is our solution, and here's our implementation. And I said, your problem sounds real, your solution
Hmm.
sounds good, your implementation is going to cause these problems. But I like your solution, but I don't. The way you're going to get there is fraught. It's a hard and rocky path, and here's an
Okay.
alternative path that is much less steep. It's a much You still have to climb the hill, but the path is not as steep. The grade's not as big. It'll go better. You'll go faster, and you'll succeed, more likely to succeed. And they're like, no, 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 we're going to do this. We got it. We've done all this research, and
Hmm.
we've talked to the stakeholders, and this is what they've told us, and it's going to be great. We're going to nail it the first time. It's going to be 100% correct, and we're going to go straight into production. And it's like you're not, but here, let me write it up in a report so that you
Ooh.
have it in case you change your mind.
I'm glad that you wrote it down.
And so yesterday, two of the three things that I told them were most likely not going to work have been determined not to have worked. And the third one, the customers are going to hate the new UI. Again, that's like if you've worked for more than a few years and you've seen more than a few reskins, customers always hate the reskin,
Yeah.
and some amount of that will be valid. Like a lot of it is just kvetching because you change things, and they'll be fine with it in a week. But some of it, like, you're going to have missed something. Like, there'll be
Yeah.
something new that's now hard that was easy before.
Yeah,
And
I
you're
feel
going to
like
need to
Slack
fix
does
that.
this a lot.
Yeah.
Every time Slack changes, people complain, but then after a week, most people are like, okay, this is fine.
Right. It's fine. It's different, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm sure they also change things and, like, oh, well, yeah, that was a mistake and we have to change it back. Or
Hmm.
add this new thing to make it. So that was an interesting thing. And this is a known problem for consultants. There's a very
Hmm.
famous book that I have not read, but I bought it.
Okay. Nice.
Nice, right? So there is famous book, right? Flawless Consulting by Peter Block.
Okay.
It's 50 years old and it's still in print. And the book is all about getting people to actually listen to your advice as a consultant.
Hmm.
Uh, so I did buy it. I have read like the first 30 pages or so. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah, you're describing my problem exactly. And also, yep, didn't do this. And yep, that
Hmm.
happened too. Yeah. So much like my predictions being totally obvious, his diagnosis of my problem, totally obvious. Like he's
Hmm.
totally got, to him, it's totally obvious.
Got it.
So
So
that's
what's the solution? Like, what could you have done differently to have gained traction and like persuaded people?
okay. So off of the very minimal amount of what I've read so far,
Hmm.
the number one thing that I didn't have was I didn't have buy-in from leadership. I got brought in from leadership. Leadership said, "Hey, go and do.
Hmm.
You go look at this and take a look and let us know what you think and what the answer is." But I didn't have buy-in from leadership that they actually were going to use any of what I was going to say. And per this book, sort of that's on leadership and not on you,
Right.
but you've made the mistake of agreeing to do the work under those terms, where leadership hasn't bought in to the importance of actually implementing whatever your recommendations. And so to him, the mistake I made is I agreed to listen and come up with recommendations without having the buy-in of, and you're going to, and you value these recommendations and you want to implement them.
How could you have known that they wouldn't value them?
So that's the image I have in my head is leadership brought me in. They said, "Hey, come to these meetings, do your thing," and they presented me like a tool in the toolkit of, "Here's Jeffrey. Jeffrey knows a lot about these implementation, operational, implementation detail and roadblocks.
Hmm.
Come in. He's going to give you some great feedback about that. Present it as a tool in your arsenal, right? That the decision was still up to the managers of the team about whether or not they intended to use the tool.
Okay.
Much like you could have a code quality tool and you could decide to use it or not. Like TDD unit tests are a great tool, and if you do 100% coverage, you're going to have many fewer problems than if you do 0% coverage. But how much coverage are you going to pick? Well, we leave that up to you.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
So what's I guess the analog here of your failure? Like if you so like let's say somebody brings me in and says, "Hey,
Hmm.
we need your advice." Is it successful for me just to give my advice and say, "All right, take it or leave it. See ya," or am I supposed to sit there and try to be like, "No, you really got. I mean, you're pushing back on me, but I'm telling you, it's going to fail." And is it my role at that point to keep trying to convince leadership, or is it just basically a leadership problem? Like, oh, you don't get it? Okay, well, I did what I was supposed to do, and I'm not going to be fighting every day for you to listen to me.
So the failure is in the engagement structure. If leadership hires you to come in and write a report and then hand it over,
Hmm.
and like that's the end of the engagement that they've hired you for, then you can't be faulted for doing that and then them not listening to you and failing. But you can
Right.
be faulted for agreeing to that relationship in the first place. what this book is saying and what have internalized from seeing this pattern play out is it the engagement can't be I'm going to come in and make recommendations. Instead, the engagement has to be I'm going to come in and I'm going to work with you throughout the entire implementation, and we're going to do this together. It has to be collaborative. That I think is the key word there. If I come in and I make recommendations and then I leave, it's diagnostic,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like if I go to the if you go get if I go when then getting a physical, right? You go to the doctor and it's like, yeah, you need to exercise more and eat less and eat healthier,
Hmm.
and then you go home and you do whatever you want, right? That's diagnostic. The doctor has told you what you should do and has left it up to you to go do that. And if you go work with a nutritionist or hire a personal trainer, they're going to tell you to do the same thing, and
Got
you're going
it.
to meet with them every week, and they're going to, if you've got a personal trainer, they're going to kick your ass, and they're going to take notes on how
Yeah.
your ass was kicked last time, and how to kick your ass differently this time for maximum effect.
So
And that's
you
a
agreed to the
consultative,
wrong engagement is
right?
in the consultative flow here. So you're saying instead, like if you go up to leadership and you say this is what we should do, how in this case are you supposed to guide them if they push back so hard and say no, we're not going to do it this way? Like because you're still trying to be that personal trainer, but what if the personal trainer is, like the person you're trying to train is like, nope, nope, I'm just going to eat poorly and I'm not going to push myself like you're telling me to. Like how is that reflecting badly on the personal trainer if you have a stubborn client?
I fire them as a client.
Okay, that answers my
That's the
question.
solution. So let's take this example, right?
Hmm.
I will make up titles here. So let's say that I was working under a VP and he had a manager, and the VP says, "Hey, I want you to go sit in with this manager and work with him and come up with this thing." And what I did is I came up with a report. So this would be like your wife making you go to the doctor, and the doctor tells you to eat less and exercise more, and then you turn around and you tell your wife, "I went to the doctor, like you said."
Mm.
Versus if the director had said, "I want you to to be consultative and collaborative and work with this person for months and have weekly check-ins and have discussions." And so it's not a one and done. It's the manager and I would be meeting weekly. We would be discussing the project. We would be discussing the things that have happened and not happening. And I would be reporting back on the progress or not progress to his manager, the VP.
Hmm.
That would be an entirely different engagement from what I did.
Right.
And that requires, if the manager was not bought in, then that would be a discussion that I would have. Just as if your wife hired you a personal trainer and you refuse to go along with it, and the personal trainer is like, "Look, it's not working." It would be your personal trainer would be ethically required. I feel like to at least report back, like, "Hey, you're paying me all this money to do training with Isaac. He's not doing it.
Right.
I can make him do a little bit, but it's not really effective. Maybe you should hire somebody else."
Right. Okay. That's a good way to. Yeah. Yeah. I see. It's
Um,
an interesting way to kind of phrase it, and I think maybe a lot of times in the consultant role, we're like inclined to want to say yes to clients because
mhm.
maybe we're either desperate for some clients if we don't have any,
Yep, right.
or we just want to solve the problem and we're just excited about solving problems and not thinking about those particular clients that would be essentially a waste of time because they're not really ready to listen to any of the advice you have to give. They're just checking a box like we got a consultant,
Hmm.
and it's not like we're actually going to take the advice and work with it to implement and fix
Yeah, well,
anything.
it's the difference between being diagnostic and being collaborative, right? It's
Right.
you go to a doctor and you tell the doctor, "Hey, I'm working with a doctor and I want a second opinion."
Hmm.
Like that's a diagnostic discussion, and you're walking in there for a diagnostic discussion. You say, "Hey, I've got these symptoms. Doctor one said this. I'm asking you for a second opinion, and I expect that you're probably going to say the same thing. And if you say something different, I may go get a third opinion because I've got two
Right.
doctors that disagree, and I'm not buying it. Like, this engagement is not. If you agree with the first doctor, I'm going to go back to the first doctor for my treatment.
Hmm.
If you disagree with this first doctor, I'm going to go find a third doctor to try to get some consensus.
Got
At
it.
no point is this engagement going to be more than like one or two meetings where you're going to diagnose something for me.
Hmm. So it's really key in that relationship and understanding what you're agreeing to, or and what role you're playing
Mm-hmm.
as a consultant as you start like defining what the project looks like or what you're going to be doing in the project, and then
Right.
also being honest and saying you're not the right person for me if it ends up being conflicting.
Right. To take the doctor metaphor, if I was a doctor, right, and in this case I said, hey, you've got cardiovascular disease. If you don't do these things, you're going to have a heart attack. And you don't do them, and then you have a heart attack. I don't feel good about that. Like, I was right. You die.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
But you see it. You see
I
when
see.
you like you have to say something.
But you see it, you have to say it. But if I was Doctor Two and I was being asked for a second opinion, right? And like, yeah, Doctor One said I have heart disease, and if I don't, eat better and exercise, I'm going to die. And I look at the data and I say, yeah, Doctor One was right. And they say, okay, I'm going to go back to Doctor One for treatment. You say, okay, cool. And then later they don't do treatment and they die. Then Doctor Two at least would feel very fine, be like, yeah, that's what I told them. I agreed with Doctor One.
Right. Okay. This
So
is
yes.
this is a pretty good interesting reflection because I feel like there's been many times too where I've called something out and I've also not been able to really convince leadership. But
Mm-hmm.
these are also different roles. I think some of the projects I'm reflecting on are more of my role as an employee at a few places rather than in a role as a consultant. Um, and those can be different and tricky too with power dynamics.
Yes, the internal consultant or the full time employee who is also acting as a consultant, which is
Hmm.
what I try to do poorly, is a tricky one. Remember, dear listener, we're all on a journey, and anyway, awesome. I think this was an interesting conversation. Uh,
Hmm.
but yes, the curious or the peculiar failure of correctly predicting problems. It does you no good if the patient still dies. Right. Thank you
Unless
all.
you're doing it purely in a diagnostic
Right.
role.
Unless your job is merely to be diagnostic,
Yeah, then you did
then
your job.
yes, it's still not great. Like, because
Yeah.
if you're a medical professional, your knowledge, your great knowledge and wisdom still didn't change the outcome, which is unfortunate. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.